to On Topic Retro Episode 3. I'm John Cummins. I have with me tonight Philip. And
That's
Philip,
me.
what is your last name?
Paulson.
Paulson, that's right. I couldn't remember. I knew your last name was not Flightsy, but I just had that in the notes. And also joining me is Sam Wagers.
Hello.
He's the guy, the mole. And how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Things are good.
I'm doing well.
I'm
Not a whole lot going on. Pretty quiet.
Schoolwork and all. I'm here with you. And that means I'm doing well.
Yeah, that's all that matters. We gathered the experts that I could find in the community here to talk about Pikmin. Pikmin will be the game we discuss all night tonight. We're going to have a blast. Hopefully everyone will learn something. If not, then you should have been on this show. So you missed your chance.
Does that mean I don't have to learn anything?
Yeah. I mean, you might learn something. Sam's usually a good teacher. He'll teach me something every show that we do on things. So
I make no guarantees.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, no, I am doing good as well. I will make mention that I purchased a AV cable for my PSP, so maybe I'll get some microsodes going on some PSP games. I usually try to leave those to a handheld, so it just gives me more options. So, yeah. Other than that, everyone's doing awesome. We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the game. We'll get into the deep dive. And first thing up is experience. So, if you guys want, I guess Philip, you can start first, and then we'll go to Sam, and then we'll do. I think I have one listener experience that I'll talk about after you guys are done.
All right.
After all of us.
All right. So, yeah, that means it's me. I'm starting. I'm going. So I played specifically the GameCube version, which is an important distinction. There's actually several differences that I can get into. I own the Wii version, but I haven't played it yet. So I've only have experience with the GameCube version. It was one of the first GameCube games I got, and that was back when I didn't have a GameCube. I just had a Wii, and I used the backwards compatibility to play it. And I found out about it because I had Pikmin 3 for the Wii U, and then I watched some Let's Plays of Pikmin 3 because I got stuck, and then I watched Let's Plays of Pikmin 1 and 2. I was like, that looks cool, and then I got Pikmin 1 for the GameCube and Pikmin 2 for the Wii, and that's how I got it. I played through it. I beat it. I used all 30 days because I was bad. And
I think everyone does on their first playthrough, it seems like.
Yeah. And then as a bonding experience with potential quotation marks, I forced my mom to play through it and all three of the other Pikmin games. So I guided her through it. And then it had been a while, but serendipitously, with this On Topic Retro, before I knew this was a thing, during spring break, I decided to play through it again. So I actually have recent knowledge of the video game. So it's not just all going off of my backlog memory. I've played through it in full recently.
Well, I don't know about Sam, but I have not played super recently. So I'm glad that you have. I mean, I expected you to be the most knowledgeable here on Pikmin because it's kind of your jam. But I have. I think I played it like 2 years ago a little bit. I don't even know if I played all the way through it, but my son and I kind of went at it a little bit, and I think he got frustrated, and we left it. So it's definitely one we'll have to revisit. But continue, Philip. I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
I mean, I'd kind of that's around everything, actually. I mean, I didn't really have anything. I mean, I could talk about my experiences and my thoughts on the game, but I thought that I put all that in the gameplay section of the notes.
Oh, yeah. Nope, that's totally fine. Sam, you can go next.
Yeah, I also have not played it very recently, but I have played through it twice. The first time was actually also through the Wii, just taking advantage of backwards compatibility. I brought my Wii with me to college, and I had a roommate who really liked Pikmin. And so he saw I had the Wii there. I was playing some other GameCube games on it, I think. And he's like, oh, well, next time, I'm home for break, I'll grab some of my GameCube games and bring them up. And he's like, hey, you haven't played Pikmin, you should play Pikmin. So that was the first time I played Pikmin. I had a GameCube, but just kind of had a lot of blind spots with the GameCube, wasn't as plugged into what the big new releases were. We stopped getting Nintendo Power. My brother got a PlayStation 2, so I was playing that as well, and my brothers were more interested in the PS2 at that point. So I just kind of missed a lot of GameCube games. Luigi's Mansion, Pikmin, Metroid
Good
Prime, all games that I just kind of skipped.
All the good video games.
Well,
those are all the good ones.
that's how it is sometimes. And a number of them I went back to later, such as Pikmin. So I had a lot of fun. I don't think I had to use all 30 days, but I did have my roommate there kind of backseating for me. And the other time I played was also on the Wii, but this time the new Play Control version, which I wound up just renting from my local library because they had games for rental. And my nephew really enjoyed watching it. He was pretty young at the time. It seems to be a thing, like Pikmin has a lot of appeal for children, especially young children. And it's easy to see why. Like, I mean, if you and your kids enjoy just like flipping over rocks and looking at bugs, that's basically what Pikmin is in some sense. It captures some of that spirit at least. But it is hard for them to play, so he'd wind up just watching. But I wound up kind of playing through the whole thing with him watching a lot of the time.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did something interesting. You said it appeals to a lot of children. I remember in that time I forced Mom to play through it. She said she really enjoyed it because it was like cleaning up.
There you go.
That's a new perspective on Pikmin. It's a cleaning simulator.
Sounds more like Chibi Robo to me, but
yeah,
well, that was a bit harder to it. That's a bit of a harder game to get.
Harder to find. For sure.
Yeah, unless you want to play Ziplash, and it's not anything like the original one. So, but all right. So I was trying to think back. I can't remember an exact day, like month or whatever, but it was either I know it was pretty close to when the game released. So it was either late 2001 or early 2002. I played Pikmin. It had to have been within the first 6 months of release. My buddy picked it up and brought it over, and he's like, "Hey, this is a new real-time strategy type game," because that's how it was kind of being not advertised, but how reviewers were looking at it at the time. And I mean, a lot of people still do. But he's telling me about this, and he's like, "Yeah, but it's made by Nintendo," and I'm thinking, what kind of real-time strategy war game is going to be made by Nintendo at that time? It was kind of confusing me because we'd played a lot of Warcraft, and we're really deep into StarCraft at that time. Command & Conquer. I played all the PC real-time strategy games, and Pikmin was not what I expected it to be whenever I heard about it. But I remember really spending some time with it over like a weekend or 2 weekends, and really enjoyed it. And I ended up buying my own copy shortly afterwards. Played through it a few times. That was kind of the good thing about Pikmin is it's made to go through, a few times. It's got some different endings and things, so it's not super long, and you can really, once you get all the maps down, you can kind of go through the game pretty easily. So
I mean, I don't have a lot of experience about other RTS games, so I actually don't know how it compares. So if I say, but it's good that it's different, because I was always worried I'd say something interesting about Pikmin, and I'd be like, that's just a normal RTS thing, Philip. And I was worried about that.
So Pikmin being an RTS is more about the things on the map are happening in real time, and you're having to use several units to build a strategy to complete a task. Other than that, it's very, very different from most RTSs. Yeah. Like, usually you're building a base and you're collecting units to attack another opponent. So I mean, I guess if you look at it as you're collecting the Pikmin to attack the enemies that are on the map, then yeah, it's somewhat similar. But a lot of times, an RTS is built around a quick match, like usually 60 minutes or less, unless it's, you know, a lot of people that are good at it. Sometimes they can drag out longer, but for the most part, you know, they're kind of designed to be quick and then, you know, rinse and repeat. And that's how you build your strategy to get better. Where Pikmin is not like that. I mean, it's a single player experience. There's not a whole lot of single player RTSs out there. I mean, they usually have like a single player mode attached to them, like a story mode, but for the most part, they seem to be developed for, you know, multiplayer in mind, with like tournaments and things like that. I think that's what the real big seller for those games were, even you know, as early as Warcraft in the late 90s, mid 90s. They were designed to be played in LANs and Battle.net. I mean, I think anybody that is a fan of any of the Blizzard stuff knows all about Battle.net and using it to play other people online. But kind of getting really far away from Pikmin, we'll bring that back in. I don't have any real recent experience. Like I said, it's probably been about 2 years ago, and my son was kind of getting interested, and I was trying to get him to play some different games other than Minecraft. I'm sure that, I mean, you guys might not understand that, not having kids yet, but,
No.
you know, was used to growing up playing all these different types of games, and my son is really like focused on one thing. Like, it's hard to deter him from that game and to try other things. So I was really just trying to find something that would get him to play something different. So Pikmin seemed like an obvious choice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always get burned out on Minecraft because I'll be like, I'm gonna do stuff, and then I get burnt out on it.
Yeah, he got really deep into Minecraft. Even, I mean, he knew how all the systems worked, and, you know, he would use the red rock or whatever. I don't even know the names of stuff. I don't play
Redstone.
Minecraft, but Redstone, that's it. So he got really, really deep into all that. I bought him books, and he would, you know, go through all those things. But it just got to the point where I was like, I can't even watch you just play Minecraft anymore. Like, I need to find something else for you to play. Like, this is almost not healthy. But yeah, so that's the last real experience that I had put into Pikmin, and we probably played at least a quarter or half a way through it, and he kind of fell off, and I ended up playing most of the time, so we ended up moving on to something else. But I definitely have played enough Pikmin, and we actually just recently, like the last year or so, played through 3, and he stayed with me the whole time, and we played co-op, so that was a good experience.
Oh, I could talk. Someday I'll have to talk about the Pikmin 3 co-op experience.
Yes,
That's
we will
interesting.
definitely have to do that, because that's a pretty fun one. Yeah, so I have one listener experience that we can get into, and that is Mr. Eric Plunk from our Discord. And he says that as an 18-year-old, he rented Pikmin when it released in 2001 and finished it over a rental period. He said, previously, my only experience with the strategy game was StarCraft on a friend's PC, and that same friend also beat the game when I brought it and my system over to his house. He says, I enjoyed the unique gameplay and aesthetic that only Miyamoto could bring. Having so many Pikmin on screen at once seemed next-gen at the time and was a good use of the Mario 128 concept. And, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show, but yeah, I mean, it looks like Eric has got a similar experience to mine where, you know, you're this is a total twist on a real-time strategy, and he was used to playing something like StarCraft as well, which, you know, a lot of people were at that time. This was kind of a new deal. But thanks, Eric, for sending in your experience, and if anybody else wants to send in an experience for the next episode, you can, if you're not in the Discord, you can send them to ontopicretro@gmail.com. At the end of the show, I will announce the next what the next show's topic will be, and you guys can feel free to send them in that way too. All right, now that we have knocked out experiences, let's talk a little bit about the game itself. So, again, like normal, I've pulled just some development facts, just straight from Wikipedia, the normal stuff. So this game released on October 26th in 2001 in Japan, December 2nd, 2001 in the US, and June 14th in 2002 for the PAL region. So, pretty close together. We're already starting to see that gap kind of being bridged between Japanese games and, coming to the US and
Or
things.
PAL region, though.
Yeah, they had to wait a little bit. But
Dang.
I think that was still kind of commonplace at that time for
I
them.
believe it was, yeah.
But I mean, thinking back now, it's not like waiting a year or two for something to get translated and brought over here like Super Nintendo days. So this was definitely a welcome thing. So the game was created and produced by Miyamoto, developed by Nintendo EAD, and it's kind of an interesting, how, and you never know with these things, like what Miyamoto ends up saying in interviews and stuff of how he comes up with these ideas. You never know if he's joking around or if it's like actually what happened or what, just what he wants to tell you that day. Seems like, we talk a little bit about that. He said in an interview that the origins of Pikmin came from watching ants in his garden, which this was later revealed to be a lie that was convenient for the time. It's always what
Betrayal.
Miyamoto wants to. Yeah, betrayal. It's what Miyamoto wants to tell you at that time. He also told us that Pikmin 4 was right around the corner, and we still haven't seen it yet. So
Technically speaking, he said that we're always working on the next one, and like he implied the next. People now think he was talking about Hey Pikmin.
yeah, I could see. That's what I think. If we were to be honest, I think Hey Pikmin was thought to be this way bigger deal than what it ended up being when it came out.
Keep forgetting
Which
it
I think it
exists.
just ended up making everybody mad because it wasn't a full-blown Pikmin game. And so then we have the re-release, which you guys said or at least Sam, you said you played the Wii version with the new controls. What'd you think of that?
Right. Yeah, I really like the Wii controls. I think I'd actually played Pikmin 2 with the new play control first. So by the time I played Pikmin with it again, I pretty much knew what to expect. I actually think it's a preferable control scheme, for me at least.
I will say I have opinions on the split of the GameCube Wii split because again I played Pikmin 2 with the Wii controls, which is very similar to playing Pikmin. There's not that much of a control. I'm sure someone's gonna get mad at me for getting this wrong. The true Pikmin fan. But I have played the Pikmin 2, so I have experience with both the Wii controls and the GameCube controls. And I will say, sometimes when playing the GameCube version, I do wish I was playing the Wii version, because it's a very good example of what a good Wii control, because people think of motion controls and this obnoxious thing added on, but using the Wii mote as a pointer worked perfectly in the Wii era. That sensor bar did wonders, and so it was really easy to aim and walk at the same time. And also, the Wii version added significant quality of life changes that were implemented in Pikmin 2, but hadn't been implemented in the first game. They went back and implemented some quality of life changes from Pikmin 2 into Pikmin 1. Sam, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but have you ever, when you press A and you can switch what type you're holding when you're holding down?
Yeah.
You can't do that in the original game.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I played either, so I don't remember that being the case. But yeah, that rings a bell to me.
They added that into the new play control version. To pick up the right color of Pikmin in Pikmin 1, you have to physically walk to where those Pikmin are standing, and then press A. And if you get it wrong, you have to throw that Pikmin and find another Pikmin. and there's no way to swap. And it is. I'm just very happy that they I'm just glad they implemented that in the Wii Play control.
I think what I wound up doing a lot of the time was the whatever command it was that would have them split, and then I just all the reds follow me. I'll throw you all over here, and then all the blues go this way.
Yeah, I think in the first game you can split them up, right? There is a command on the C stick to split them up.
Not the C stick. It's like X. Not
one
of the face buttons.
Control pad, or is it one of the buttons?
It's definitely one of the buttons because that's just like a command where you break them up. The control pad does stuff with camera, I think.
Yeah, the C stick kind of gave them direction, right? Like you could use the C stick to move them.
Yes, the C stick was the swarm ability, which is absolutely vital on playing. I have a whole section on that later in the notes because it's such an important part of this game. But that's not what I'm talking. But that doesn't control what color. You could swarm to get close to the color and press A, but that doesn't change the color order of your Pikmin.
Correct. Okay. So yeah, as mentioned, the Wii controllers were, for a lot of people, were a welcome addition. I seem to like for whatever reason, the GameCube controls seemed more intuitive to me at the time. Whenever I tried to play with the Wii controls, I'm kind of like the grumpy old grandpa that doesn't want to change. So I played the original that way and didn't want to change. So even playing Pikmin 3, I played with the Switch and I didn't use the motion controls. I played with in handheld mode. So
now I will say I didn't use the. I mean, I will say first off, I've only played Pikmin with the GameCube itself. I'm just speaking from my experiences with Pikmin 2 and my knowledge of what they implemented, and it definitely still works with the GameCube. It's definitely this was the original control scheme. It definitely still works. But I was gonna say I didn't play with motion controls on the Switch because the Switch motion controls doesn't have the sensor bar, so pointer controls don't work nearly as well on that thing.
No.
And it's
yep. It's, unless you like recentering all the time.
Yep. Which doesn't it have just a button input for that on that because it has to be done so often?
Yes, and it actually replaces a control. So you actually have less control because you have to have the reset button.
I don't like that.
Thanks, Pikmin 3 Deluxe.
I don't want to harp on the controls too much. It's too good of a game to do that. But yeah, so the game has 3 endings depending on the amount of parts that you find while playing. We'll get more into that later when we talk about gameplay. The music was composed by Hajime Wakai. Is that how you would say that? I butcher these guys' names every time. Yep. All right. And he is from Star Fox 64 fame, which I'm sure Dan would be jumping up and down if he had made it to this episode, because he's a big Star Fox guy. He'd probably correct me on that name too. But yeah, so Miyamoto actually, and I think this was in a different interview, but he talks about how he originally thought the game would be based on Adam and Eve, and you would kind of Adam and Eve in a prehistoric world where players would play as God and interact with the two characters in different ways, like having them build a nest and eventually having children and creating a village, and that was kind of his scope at the time. And I could see where you would really kind of get away from that pretty quickly, and try to develop it into its own thing. But and I mean, there were other games that had done this in the past as well, so you definitely did not Adam and Eve necessarily, but there were games like Black and White and
even Nintendo's own Doshin the Giant.
Yeah, Doshin the Giant.
Sort of in that genre.
Yeah.
What is Doshin the Giant?
So it's a game it was originally a disc drive game for the N64, but it did come out on GameCube in PAL and Japan, but not in the US. He's got a trophy in Smash Bros. That's the main reason I know about him. Just big yellow guy. He's a friendly giant.
And So, like in Black and White, you actually do play as like a god that has to earn the favor of like all of his people that you're controlling, and to the point where like it's a little bit different. But I mean, I could definitely see how somebody would strike that similarity if Miyamoto was to keep his original concept. So I'm kind of glad that we ended up with what we did and not just something like that. And also to mention that the game also it has connections to the Mario 128 demo that was shown at Space World 2000. That's kind of how we get the ability to control all the Pikmin at once on the same screen. That tech demo probably led to this being able to happen on the GameCube, which I don't know. Philip, were you even around in 2000?
No.
Okay,
I was,
yeah. So you didn't get
3
to
years old.
yeah, you didn't get to witness Space World 2000.
No.
That was
But I've watched the video of Mario 128.
Nice. Yeah, the demos that were shown of how awesome the GameCube was going to be, and then getting something not totally different, but it's how tech demos work. You get all hyped up and you're ready to go, and then whenever you get that's the same. I believe that's the same showing where we got the footage of what we thought was going to be the next Zelda game for the GameCube, and everyone, then we got Wind Waker, which was totally different than what the tech demo was showing at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's kind of the game overview. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to add on development. Again, a lot of it's up to what Miyamoto has said and how much of it's true and how much of it he wants you to believe is true. So,
I believe because I believe Adam and Eve was like a game that was actually in development, and I think I can see why if you ask down the origin of Pikmin and you don't want to go into how it used to be like a god simulator. If you just wanted to say, I mean, I saw these ants in the garden. And
yeah,
it
a nice
falls
story.
into line with a lot of that, like a lot, especially out of Nintendo. We have a lot of other Pokemon was inspired by bug collecting, and there's quite a few of those that have that this is Miyamoto himself I think said the same about Zelda, as some kind of exploring as a kid.
Yep.
He wanted to capture that in a game, so I think it was kind of trying to shoehorn it into that same narrative.
I mean, it's almost like a folk tale, like a lot of our folk tales, apocryphal folk tales that everyone's heard of, like I think the Lady Godiva story and all the other folk tales. Kind of like one of those it didn't historically happen, but it's like a comforting and fun folktale to hear about.
And it's perfectly believable. I mean, it's like, ants, Pikmin carrying stuff. I see that. I see how
it's
you
totally
would come
relatable.
up with that.
Yeah, I see it. So from here, we'll move on. We'll talk a little bit about the story. And I think I'll let Philip read this. I've been talking a whole lot in this episode already, so I'll spread it around a little bit. So Philip, you can read the story note there, and you can talk about it.
Do you want me to read it word for word, or do you want me to just say something based off of it?
Either way, whatever you feel like.
All right, Pikmin. And also wait, before I have another question, can I also put the lore world building thing here?
Yeah, that's fine too.
Because that feels like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Pikmin is a video game about Captain Alamar, a worker for the company Hockaday Freight, although I'm not sure if that's actually introduced in this game, or if that was just introduced in the sequel. And Almar's just taking a spaceship vacation in his personal spaceship, the SS Dolphin, when it's struck by some kind of like meteor thing, and he's pulled into the gravity field of a strange planet. The SS Dolphin loses a bunch of parts during the crash, and Almar can't leave until he finds the majority of them. And what's worse, Almar realizes that the planet's air is full of a deadly chemical known as oxygen. He only has 30 days before his life support fails, and he's feeling pretty hopeless until he finds the Pikmin, which the game is named after. He calls them that because they remind him of Pick carrots from back home. And basically, he enlists the Pikmin's help in getting all his ship parts back.
Yep, that sounds about like Pikmin to me. I like how they had to like incorporate the, they're similar to a vegetable that he that he knows from his homeworld.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like even the name has to be explained.
And the onion is also apparently looks like an onion from his homeworld, to the point where in the sequel Pikmin 2 you find an actual onion and they call it like a false onion.
Yeah. This looks like a
False
cheap
onion.
copy of
It's like,
Heresy.
but speaking of this, wrapped up in this, there's also a lot of hints that Pikmin is post-apocalyptic. So you have any thoughts on that one? I could go over the
well,
hints.
and
if you
it's
need it.
some of this is kind of as I remember it, a gradual sort of reveal. Like Olimar's in a spacesuit. This planet is hazardous to him, but I think it's only like halfway through the game you read the log where you find out the thing that makes the atmosphere hazardous to him is oxygen. You're like, oh, well, that's interesting.
I am afraid that is wrong because I remember playing it recently. It's in the first area.
Is it?
When he says it. Yeah, it's like one of the first things. I think it's one of the first things he said. Oh no, I can't. I swear it's like one of the first things he says because he's bemoaning it. Because he like monologues every 5 seconds in the opening
Maybe
area.
I just didn't pay attention
about various
to that.
things.
I probably was just skipping through dialogue at that point.
Yeah, he says a lot of
could be.
things.
I don't remember where it gets explained, that part. But
I mean, it's
definitely as you're going through the game, you start, you're finding all these things that are stuff you would find on Earth. That you're putting it together.
the first obstacle that you need the Pikmin to move beyond just getting the flowers to get more Pikmin is a big cardboard box. It's upside down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And later Pikmin games would add on to this quite a bit. But one of the other small hints, it's all implied. It's just like when he leaves the planet in the last end cutscene of the best ending, it looks very Earth-like, and it's just, and there's all these like human objects kind of strewn around. But there's also the one other piece of information besides all this is the fact that Alamar has a Geiger counter on his ship that's constantly going off once you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also kind of sad because it's explained in flavor text that Alamar doesn't know what the Geiger counter does.
Yeah, I mean, maybe what he breathes is radiation. So
Well, there's also the fact that if it is Earth, Earth is apparently now populated by Pikmin and Bulborbs and all sorts of other weird mutant
microscopic
creatures.
animals.
Presumably,
The radiation just shrunk everything.
well, it didn't shrink Alamar because Alamar comes from space.
Yeah, he's an
So
alien.
Alamar's just naturally tiny.
He comes from a tiny little planet somewhere.
But yeah, it's a really nice, it's a nice backdrop, and I don't know why so many Nintendo games are post-apocalypse, but I think it does quite nice here, and I think I wanted to highlight that, and I wanted to highlight that I think I also want to highlight the ship parts themselves, because every time you get a shift part, there's like two descriptions for it. Once when you get to it, and once when it gets back to the ship, and they tell you stuff about Alamar. And it tells you about his character. Like,
going back to your first thought there about, why Nintendo has a lot of post-apocalyptic games, or theory behind them that they're post-apocalyptic. It's probably a lot easier to explain why because most of their characters aren't human, so like it's an easy explanation of why something that's not human is on a Earth-like place. So it's kind of like an easy way to get out of trying to explain it too deeply. Oh yeah, this is post-apocalyptic. This used to be inhabited by humans, but they're long gone, and now these new creatures are here.
But isn't it easier to just say this is the Mushroom Kingdom, because this is the only Nintendo franchise I can think of that isn't a post-apocalypse. This is just a place that has magical things. Like, just say
Mushrooms.
This is another dimension.
See, but the Mushroom Kingdom is apparently connected to Brooklyn, so.
But like, it's like in another
that's
dimension.
That's only in the movie, I think.
Whatever, it's canon.
Well,
it's
in the cartoon show too. There's an episode where they go back to Brooklyn in the cartoon show.
Both also very loosely canon, if canon at all.
Yeah. But like,
Nintendo would probably argue both of those things.
But a lot of it's pretty explicit. Like, we have Pikmin, and I think these are pretty fair indicators. Like, we were talking about Wind Waker earlier. That's explicitly a post-apocalyptic of the last game, right?
Yep.
The sea on it.
Everything's flooded, and
now Hyrule is
that out later.
Technically distinct from like planet Earth, as we know.
Well, it's still a post-apocalypse. Yeah. And then there's also Splatoon, where like there's like humans. Like, is it? I don't know much about the DLC, but apparently there's like a human AI there.
Yeah, there is an AI that was created by humans that wants to basically guide the evolution of the new creatures by wiping out the Inklings.
And it's also in Kirby.
It has converted the Statue of Liberty into a super weapon.
Wait, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Pikmin lore gets kind of weird.
That's Splatoon lore.
Splatoon. Sorry,
too.
Splatoon.
Yeah, and then it's also in sorry.
I was gonna say, which makes me even more excited for Splatoon 3 to come out, to get even more craziness, like, because aren't the cats even like in on it?
Well, it's called
Judd is the last surviving mammal, and Judd Jr. is his clone.
But like the story, like I was watching the trailer, it's called Return of the Mammalians.
Yeah, they're coming back. So
the Octolings are just getting fur.
That's kind of what it looked like.
This actually circles back to Pikmin lore. In Pikmin 3, there's a enemy called the Bearded Amprat, and in the notes in Pikmin 3 Deluxe in the Piclopedia, you have Alamar talking about it like he's like, this is the first mammal. Basically, he's like, I'm going to invent a new class of species to talk about this kind of animal, which is weird because you'd think Alamar himself would be a mammal, but I don't know.
He does have hair, doesn't he?
He does have hair.
I mean, that's not the only qualifier, I guess, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, whales, mammals.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that I can't remember. There's some way that let's say the whales have like something else that ties them that makes more sense, but this isn't a science podcast. We're gonna try to leave that out.
It's primarily creatures that give live birth and nurse their young rather than laying eggs.
Except for the platypus, which breaks that rule.
Yeah, platypus breaks all the rules.
Yeah.
Platypus is a bunch of animals together. But this actually circles back around to the lore of Pikmin 1. Because I wanted to talk about it. As you look at my notes, this was totally a planned tangent. You can't prove otherwise. We have the enemy roll call. So part of the happy end, which is actually what it's called, is if you get all 30 ship parts, you get an enemy roll call, which is interesting in a lot of other ways. But it actually shares a lot of cool lore about it, and I just really like the lore building in this game, just because it's not a big aspect, but it's a very nice touch they add to it, and it just tells you little facts about how these animals like exist in the ecosystem.
Yeah, it explains the ecosystem of the planet.
Yeah, and like you'll have relatives, and like they'll like talk about, oh, the water dumple is a relative to the dwarf bulborb, or not the dwarf bulborb, the regular bulborb, because one of the lore bits that I'll always remember is that the baby bulborbs, the dwarf bulborbs, the small ones.
Mm-hmm.
Those are a different species than the big ones, and they're mimicking the regular bulborbs to get in on the protection. And in game, if you bother one of the dwarf bulborbs but let it live, it will go over in game and cry out, and that will wake up the big bulborbs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely... Only Nintendo goes that deep into the ecosystem of a planet of animals that don't exist.
The only one that I think maybe comes close is Monster Hunter. There's definitely quite a bit to be found there if you dig for it.
Yeah, Monster Hunter is very deep lore-wise, especially with all the different species of monsters and everything. But
I really...
You have anything else you want to add to the story, Philip?
One more thing. We also have Almar's journal entries, and so every time, after the end of every day, another thing that just helps build on Almar's character, which is kind of gullible. We see in a couple things, is what I remember, but he's also a company man. He's a family man. He'll talk about his family, and those journal logs are actually adaptive, so they're coded in, so that if you kill a lot of Pikmin or leave a lot behind, Alamar will talk about it in his journal entries. So they're meant to adapt to your gameplay. And there's actually a bunch of them that can't trigger because whatever they were meant to there are a bunch in the game that won't trigger because the trigger was removed from the game in development. So there's also a bunch of journal entries that were for events that now can't happen, which is interesting.
And somebody's probably went in and data mined all those out.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Shared them. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, that is very, that's the part of this game. It's almost like Metroid, where you're building the story. Your character doesn't tell the story. It's not being narrated. You're basically getting fed the whole story through, mission logs or notes or journal entries from the pilot, which is, a very, very Metroid-like thing, which, it's pretty neat. I like games that can pull that off. Some games don't do it as well. Some games try to do it like that, and then, you end up not caring as much, but... definitely with Pikmin, I liked reading all of them.
When it's not done well, either there's so much to comb through that you just lose interest, or there just barely is a plot to begin with.
Yeah, the plot's not large enough or interesting enough to hold all of the narrative that they're trying to push on you. It has to be interesting to start with, otherwise it doesn't go very far.
I mean, one of the things that's good about Pikmin, and also Kirby lore, but that's not important, but Pikmin is, it's 100% optional, and, you don't need to read, the story is just that blurb you wrote down initially.
Yeah.
And I brought in all this extra lore stuff because I find it interesting and I find it really fun, and later it will be expanded upon all these elements, the post-apocalyptic thing, they'll come up with a Picklepedia, so the enemy roll call thing, pretty much everything will get expanded upon in later entries. But at least for now, it's a very out of the way, just kind of extra little touch, which I think does a good job of fleshing out the world for those that are interested in it. But you're not missing anything by not reading all of the enemy roll call.
All of it's totally optional. I mean, you could. I mean, essentially the same thing in the other Nintendo games that do this, like Metroid. You can choose to read all of them. That's kind of the interesting thing about Prime. I know this isn't a Metroid episode, but you can choose to read through all the things you find, or you can just move on. You don't, it's all optional. You can leave it or take it. So it's definitely part of the world building, but you can 100% play Pikmin. Just go grab the ship parts and grab the thing. I mean, once you understand the game mechanics, you don't even have to read anything anymore. You just take off. You got 30 days to do it.
Yeah. And one of the things is also, as well, just the fact, like, all of the lore, a lot of the lore is not like a story lore, it's like world building, and it's talking about how all these enemies work. And again, I love the example is where I was talking about earlier, where that lore kind of transcends into the gameplay, where like the dwarf farmers are specifically trying to mimic the big ones for protection, and then they actively like act upon that in the game. And like I really like that, how theoretically you could pick some of this stuff up just from playing the game and seeing how there's different species of the frog in different levels, and you could pick up some of this without actually having to read any of the explicit lore.
Yeah, you definitely can. And speaking of gameplay, let's go ahead and move on and talk a little bit about some gameplay.
Games.
The meat and potatoes of the game. I mean, you're basically navigating the world as Captain Olimar, as we already mentioned. This game is considered to be an RTS style of gameplay, not like as loosely as you can call it that. The basics are you start out, you learn that the Pikmin are there, and you just pluck them from the ground. They're like a vegetable person, which is kind of weird. But you learn early that you want to have a bunch of these guys because you need them for everything. You send them to collect items, including ship parts, fruit, seeds, to make more Pikmin. The Pikmin are also used to battle other life forms on the planet that are hostile towards you. As you put in here, Philip, 5 of Olimar's ship parts are actually optional. You don't know this when you're playing the game the first time. Like, they don't come out and tell you. Well,
they do kind of. I noticed when I was playing recently in the journal entries, it would just every journal entry. I was kind of disappointed because I was hoping for more interesting journal entries, but every journal entry made sure to be like, I think I might not need all of these ship parts, but like they wouldn't say explicitly. Yeah. They would just keep saying that phrase, basically.
I mean, there's not anything, like if you weren't reading the lore, like if somebody was just playing through it and chose not to, you would just think that you needed all 30 because that's what they give you a counter for. you know?
That's what they say at the start.
Yeah. So, like we said, you have 30 days to collect the parts, and the first time you play, you'll probably use the majority of those days, unless you're just, somebody that naturally is taking to the game. I know the first time I played, I used pretty close to all the days playing through the game. And as Philip mentioned in here, you can kind of use that as a challenge to try to see how fast you can complete the game, how many days it takes you to do so. I don't know what I usually look up the speedrun time for a game and try to include that in the facts, and I didn't do that for this one. But somebody's probably beat this fairly quick.
I'm looking it up. It's 54 minutes, 31 seconds, and 6 in-game days.
Yeah, 6 is what I'm seeing.
That's pretty quick. I don't know that I could beat the game in 6 days. There's a challenge for you, Sam.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm up to that. I don't usually do speed runs. It's just that becomes super stressful because you just have to give yourself almost no room for error.
I mean,
you'd have to know where every single thing is at. Like, I it would just blow my mind. I'll have to watch that at some point. I've got an hour in my week somewhere where I can watch a playthrough of Pikmin.
I mean, I will say, Pikmin is one of the only games I've ever tried to do anything speed related in, because even though I'm not a speedrunner and I don't do speed based stuff, I'm a completionist. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I do. Pikmin is a really enticing speed game. It's really good at pulling you into it because you'll have a plan. You'll be like, I know what I want to do for this map, and then like I'll try and do it, and I almost do it, and now I just want to be like, oh, I bet I could get that. I bet I could do it. Exactly.
How efficient can I do this? You know, you start beating yourself up over the little mistakes and go back and try to fix them as you go. I do this a lot when I'm playing Harvest Moon games. Like I'll play through them once and then learn all the locations of all the items that you want to sell, and then learn the quickest routes between things, and learn all the stuff that I can skip totally that aren't needed, and then I'll go back and play through it again and do even better.
And that's one of the things I've mentioned, and I think it's why I like them better, actually, that makes Harvest Moon very different in feel from something like Animal Crossing, because you can't speed up Animal Crossing unless you're a time traveling cheat.
Pirate.
But Harvest Moon, you do that. You learn to be efficient. Animal Crossing, there's pretty much no reason to be efficient.
Yep. And Pikmin is like that too. I mean, it even comes naturally, like as you play through the games in the series. Like you play the first one, you get the feel for it. The second one comes around, you have a way better handle on it. You're already way more efficient than somebody that just started playing the second game on its own. you know the rigmarole of getting in and getting efficient at it.
Which is good, because Pikmin 2 is the hardest game.
Pikmin 2 is, yes, definitely a lot harder.
Despite being the one that has effectively no time limit. I mean, it does, but the hard parts don't have a time limit.
Basically, there's no time limit at all because you have unlimited days. You do have the day-to-day time limit, but you have no overall time limit. There's no fail state, because even if you kill all your
time
Pikmin,
doesn't pass
another one
in
will
the
generate.
caves.
Yeah.
So.
But the challenge, but it takes the idea that you cannot fail and is like, okay, but now let's make the challenge super hard to compensate.
Yep. That's how they do it. They get you every time. Also, there's only 100 Pikmin allowed on the screen at one time. Is this something that stays through the whole series? I can't remember.
Yeah, that has not changed That's not changed. It's probably technically possible, but I wonder if it just has to do with resource management and just the fact that it might not, because 100 it forces you to manage it, because if you can make as many Pikmin as you want, you just can't bring them all out. But if you bring them, if you were allowed to bring out all 1,000 or so Pikmin, I wonder if that has more of a gameplay problem rather than a technical issue, which is why they haven't done it.
Oh, I know it would. I mean, we've seen how Muso games work. You get everybody on there.
You can't have no cap. Now, I do have to wonder if in the development of Pikmin 2 or Pikmin 3 they ever said, hey, do we want to have more Pikmin? That's a logical how do we make this better than the last game? Is make it possible to lead 200 Pikmin or 150 or
But so they added more colors.
They just keep adding different types instead, which I kind of like. I mean, I like the variety. I don't ever necessarily feel like I don't have enough Pikmin. Very seldomly. 100 seems pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, 100 is definitely good. I only feel like I don't have enough when some of them have died because of me being bad at the video game.
I tend to find myself having the opposite problem. If I have 100 out at one time, I'm usually not utilizing all 100, and it bothers me. I feel like I'm not being as efficient as I need to be if I have them all out, and half of them are just following me around. I'm not using them for anything.
Yeah.
So
alternatively,
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's kind of
Spoken
breaking
like
into smaller groups.
like an RTS player who is haunted by that idle worker button.
Exactly. Again, I come at this game with the mindset of playing early PC games. So I'm beating myself up trying to get as efficient as possible while playing. Enemies are often temporarily despawned when off screen, which is something that I totally forgot even happened until you mentioned that.
Oh yeah, this is all of. I added all of these points, by the way, because they build up to something, and that's where that paragraph at the end is.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine, and I'll read the next little bit, and then I'll let you read that part. But so the swarm ability we talked a little bit about using the stick to perform party movements with all the Pikmin. This is something that essentially, like, I have to imagine that the game didn't have this, and like they were playing it, and then like then they're like, we really need a way to be able to move all these guys at once and like effectively.
Yeah. They removed it in Pikmin 3, and I still think that was a mistake. They've been refining the new mechanic to replace it in Pikmin 3, and it's not a bad mechanic. Like, I played Pikmin 3 first, I didn't find any problems with it.
It's more like a
but
charge
I missed
command
the swarm.
in 3.
Yeah, it's a charge.
It's a charge rather than like a
It's
control.
pretty much only for offense, not for defense.
Yes.
Correct.
And the defense, as I go into my next paragraph, is some of the best parts about being able to use the swarm. Because here's all of these 4 points: the time limit, the 100 Pikmin, the enemies, and the swarm ability all come together in this beautiful way. Because, as we were talking about, this game is really good at making you want to go efficient, want to get things done as fast as possible. And you can only have 100 Pikmin out at a time. So, getting more Pikmin after 100 doesn't do anything to benefit you unless you're like me and are bad at the game and lose them. But if you're good at the game, then theoretically you don't need to collect anymore because you've got all you can need. And the enemies won't be a problem when you're bringing stuff back because they despawn when you're not looking at them. Which means it's very beneficial when you're getting really efficient to not kill things. And this leads to...
The only thing that you're gaining by killing them is more Pikmin.
Yeah, which isn't necessary on the later in late game. But this leads to a phenomenon is that you leave the enemies alive, and some of the best and most tense moments of this game are when you're using the swarm command, because obviously when you're initially walking out, all the enemies are spawned, and you're using the storm command to basically try to like manually avoid all of the attacks that are coming in. And that is when I found in my most recent playthrough, that was like the most fun parts of this game. It was just so much fun to be like, all right, no, we got to get through this. All right, guys, we're going in, and like panic, and it was just a really high tense because you can control them pretty well with the swarm, but not perfectly. So like it's just very high tense thing where you're trying to minimize Pikmin deaths as you run through the enemies without actually killing any of them, because that takes a lot of time and effort. And in one of the last stages, they had ball bears, which are really tough enemies, but they're all asleep. So
Yep.
You gotta like swarm your Pikmin, like barely avoiding touching them, and like that's where a lot of the fun comes, because it's just all of these 4 elements just kind of combine to make this really nice experience. And so I want to just highlight that kind of like gameplay loop. I'm not sure if it's the primary gameplay loop because it only has certain situations, but I think it's a really nice gameplay loop that it generates.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of find it weird that we've made it an hour into the show and haven't even really talked about the Pikmin themselves all that much.
Pikmin.
In the first game, you have 3 colors, different attributes based on each color. The red are resistant to fire, and they do 1.5 times damage. Blue can walk underwater without drowning and throw other drowning Pikmin to safety. Now, I want to quickly like hit on this. Like, that's something that happens automatically. Like, you can't just tell the Pikmin to go do it.
No.
And I've had a lot of times where they're like, nope, screw that guy. I'm just going to let him go.
It's like, no.
Like, no, don't go save him now. And it doesn't happen.
It has they only do it when they're idle. They don't do it when they're in your party, I think.
Yeah, I've noticed that. And it's very frustrating. Like, you want to be able to command him over there and be like, yeah, go save him. And you can't.
Yeah. I will say, combine something to do with this is some of the things in this game, because the first one are kind of jank, and like so early on in my playthrough, I killed like 70 Pikmin all at once when I was going after the burrowing Snagrets. Not because the burrowing Snagrets were killing 70 Pikmin, but because there's a bridge with water on either side, and that's how you get to it. And 70 Pikmin fell off.
Yep.
And
At least we
be
know the
careful.
answer to the question
Yeah.
that if Olimar asked you to jump off of a bridge, the Pikmin would in fact do it. Because they do it even
Oh,
when
yeah,
he doesn't
every
ask
time.
them.
Eh,
terrible.
And that leaves us to the yellow, which are the last color. And they are able to hold bombs and be thrown higher. So I guess they're considered to be lighter than the other Pikmin.
Yeah. Or their
and then-
wings, or like air
Yeah.
resistance. I can't remember what
They're-
the explanation is.
Yeah, they're little. They
Their
actually have the
ears. I
or
think it's
whatever.
their ears.
Ears,
Yeah.
not wings. Ears, not wings. Because they have the ears, mouth, nose thing
Yep.
going on with the triad.
Yeah, there's different. Like, the different colors have different body parts. It's kind of weird.
But like they're all justified, like because like the red nose, like I think it's supposed to be that they do more damage because they have a pointy nose.
Yeah, I can see
And-
that.
The mouth on the blues is explicitly stated in some lore in like Pikmin, in one of the Pikmin games to be gills.
I think I remember that, yeah.
I think it was 3 that said that. I can't remember.
Oh, I believe it. And there's also 3 levels of maturity. You have leaf, bud, and flowers. The higher the maturity level, the faster the Pikmin. And they, this is something that, like, one of the early first times I played it, I didn't even really notice like it happening, and didn't fully understand that mechanic. And I get really deep into other parts of the game and didn't even notice. I do this stuff all the time. I'm horrible at it, but definitely something that by the time I played it a couple times, I realized it and started letting my Pikmin kind of hang out, wait until they mature a little bit, then pluck them. Only pluck them if necessary, basically.
Well, pluck them when they're flowers because they'll cycle back down to leaves.
Yeah,
If
they
you wait till-
they do cycle full, go back around. So you definitely have to do that. But I definitely, like, when I first started playing them, I would plant them and then just immediately run over there and start plucking them out. As soon as they come out of the onion, I was going to pick them up because I need Pikmin is in my head. And then once I found out, like, hey, the bud means something and the flower is something totally different, then you start, you don't necessarily have to run over and grab them. You just wait and you get what you want. So, and then there's also the ability to alter the maturity of your Pikmin with nectar,
Yeah.
which is another thing that, like, I totally just blew by. Like, I don't know if I just have a bad habit of not reading everything when I'm playing the game, but
I mean, nectar isn't really explained. I think,
No.
I think it pops up. There's an explanation that pops up when you get it. But like, there's just a ton of stuff that you can do to get nectar. Like, there's some enemies that will drop it, and like you'll just like putting the Pikmin on grass. Will have them plucking it for nectar.
yep.
And that's usually where I get my flowers on rather than waiting for them in the ground because it's more reliable and it just instantly makes them flowers.
That is a very good point. But it's all these things that you learn by playing the game because there's not really a whole lot telling you about it. And like we mentioned, if you leave them in the ground long enough, they'll just keep continuing to cycle. So you can't just like let them wait and then go pick them later. They might have already went past their cycle a few times and went back to being just a normal Pikmin. And let's see. So the flowers have a few extra traits. They twirl in the air, causing them to travel less far and fall slower. And you mentioned this is removed in the remakes.
Yeah, it's not really a big thing. I didn't even notice this. I was just looking up some other flower related fact and came upon this, and it was so interesting I had to throw it in the notes. But apparently they just do this thing that minorly adjusts how far they go and how fast they fall. And I guess when they were making the remakes, they thought they just removed it for some reason.
It probably wasn't being utilized as much as they wanted it to be originally,
Yeah.
And then they also have a chance of leaving seeds behind when they die if they're in flower mode.
Which I will say, that's more of an annoying feature. Like, some of the features in these games I think are very interesting, but are more annoying. Because this is one of them. Because then you just have a random Pikmin, and you can only bring 99 Pikmin out, and there's just random one somewhere strewn about the map.
You're stuck with the 99 that you have there, and it's usually easier to just have all of your planted reserves be at the onion. But then now
then to try to go find it somewhere.
Yeah, it's really... so I think this one is actually only Pikmin 1. And I think something similar about the optional ship parts. It's a really cool idea, but nothing differentiates the optional ship parts from the normal ones, so it's kind of a wasted mechanic because you're not going to be able to tell while you're playing.
Yeah, exactly.
All you can do is, like, make something different about them. Like, my idea was to not put them on the radar, so you actually had to find them instead of see them on the map. But no, there's just no difference.
That would have been cool. Yeah, we also haven't talked about how, like, the game makes you, like, care about your Pikmin in a way. Like, you don't want to leave them laying around. You don't want to leave them out and about whenever you leave at night because they give you the horrible, little video of your Pikmin getting eaten by the aliens that are on the planet with them. So, like, you kind of develop a weird, like, relationship with Pikmin through playing the game and seeing them go through all these things.
Yeah, it's just seeing that little ghost float away when they die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They drift off, yeah.
The specter of your own failure. Looking at you in disappointment.
Yeah.
And then you'll be done, and the end of the day is like, I just want to escape from it. And the log will come up, and Alma will be like, I feel so guilty about all those Pikmin I killed.
Yep. That's exactly what happens. And, it's to the point where, like, you'll be frantically running around the map at the end of the day trying to find, like, the last couple ones that didn't, they got left out of the whistle call or whatever. And you just left them somewhere. Like, I've done that before. And, I had to tell myself, I'm like, these are, not real. They're not a big deal if I lose a couple because I can always grow more. There's another day I can grow more.
I will say, I actually started. I've actually, after my years of Pikmin, I've developed a bit of a Pikmin apathy. Because, like, I like them, but, like, after years, so now because it's more efficient, I'll, like, try and keep, like, I'll often lose Pikmin to the end, because I'm trying to get as much done in a day, like, the efficiency has taken over me.
It's definitely there's two sides to it for sure. You first start playing and you see that screen and they're dying and you're like, man, I really want to try to save them all, and then you realize it's really hard to get all the things done in a day that you need to get done if you do save them all. So you have to kind of, like, scales of conviction, right, Sam?
Yep.
I mean, there's an interesting thing I've noticed where, like, the efficiency of the game almost works kind of counter to some of the other aspects. Like, the really good guilt work they do with the Pikmin runs against the efficiency. But also, there are, like, some pretty cool, like, secret bosses hidden in this game. And I went for all of them on my recent playthrough. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, you're wasting time. These don't get you anything except,
don't mean
like,
anything.
more Pikmin. Like, you're wasting time. So, like... And then, like, so, like, it just kind of, it's just interesting because, and, like, I noticed it's more efficient if you let all your yellow Pikmin die by blowing them all up, because then you blow up all the rocks at once and get the wall down.
Yep.
But, and, like, it's almost like there's, like, kind of, like, this tug and pull. There's, like, this tug and pull, like, between some of these elements, which I think is very interesting in how they've done that.
We also something else I realized we didn't even talk about the how you gather the Pikmin by blowing the whistle, and also how does Olimar even blow in a whistle with a helmet on? Like, how does that work?
I think I thought like if you look at the character design, isn't it like part of the helmet?
Yeah, it's like part
I
of the
gotta look up
helmet,
Olimar.
which does raise the question of how air is not getting through the helmet.
Through the whistle. Otherwise, the sound wouldn't be coming out of the helmet. Now we're getting. It's just something I thought about. I was like, how's he blowing the whistle with his helmet on?
Special whistle helmet, specifically made to let air to be airtight whistle. Don't ask how that works.
The power of science.
Yeah,
I will say things in the Pikmin lore sometimes fall apart because the Hakatations are basically tiny humans, and sometimes Olimar's lack of knowledge about this happens a lot in Pikmin 2 in the Piklopedia, and sometimes there's this weird disconnect between how much of human society that because in Pikmin 2 Olimar mentions you find a giant rubber duck and he has no idea what it is, and then in Pikmin 3 one of the characters has a rubber duck. And so you get a bunch of these crossed wires between the alienness of human society and them kind of having human society.
Yep, there's definitely.
Well, how much
missed.
time is between Pikmin 2 and 3? Maybe Olimar's reports about the rubber duck have made it all the way back, and he started a trend.
Yeah, I mean it was an entire 9 years between those games. And it will be another 9. We're coming up on 9 years for because it was 2013, so we're at 9 years again for Pikmin 3 to 4.
We were bound to get one now, then sometime soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I hear it's almost done for the Wii U.
That's right. So we already talked quite a bit about lore and world building, so let's go ahead and move on to the music. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the music, Philip.
Oh yeah. I added that in because there's some interesting things about the music. It's just a really nice track. If we go to the Awakening Wood, if you have this nice hopeful music, I did want to talk about the music in general because I think it's really nice. It's got this very atmospheric theme. I actually really like Distant Spring because it's kind of a track made entirely out of atmospheric noises. It's barely a song. It's not really one that has a prominent melody, but it's just these atmospheric tones, and you can put it in the podcast and editing and listeners to hear what I mean. But it's this kind of it's very interesting, and I wanted to specifically highlight the final trial as well for being a wonderful piece of music. It starts with this very menacing opening. And then you have this very menacing scale playing in the background, and then the main melody starts. And it's bum ba dum ba ba da ba bum ba dum ba dum ba da, and
reminds
you have this
some
really
early Disney type music.
Yeah, but
they
you have
build
this
the suspense, and then it kind of mellows out into what's going on.
But they don't stop having this really creepy chord playing in the background, and you have these two sides of the song kind of battling each other, and if you get into an enemy fight, which only happens in challenge mode, it's the main melody, it's the same, but it's played on piano, and it feels at parts he's banging the keys. Nice. But it's still the same cheerful melody. Is this really nice dichotomy. I really suggest you listen to it, just because you viewers at home listen to it. It's one of my favorite Pikmin tracks in general. It's just a really nice piece of work. I saw a comment on it on YouTube that mentioned it was like a child trying to sing themselves to comfort themselves while alone in the dark, and that was perfect.
Yeah, it's a pretty good way to describe it. I mean, the rest of the music to the game really fits the game. The music was a nice add, to the, even to the world building, and just how, at times Olimar feels more upbeat than other times. Sometimes you can tell he's like kind of losing hope, and then whenever you get further in and you start getting more pieces of the ship, he's not as depressed about the situation. So the music definitely reflects that as you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
and I remember,
even though it's a lot
there you
of environmental sounds, I think the Pikmin series as a whole has a very strong musical identity to it. Like you can hear one of those tracks and you're like, oh, that's a Pikmin song.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really nice. I actually, I forgot to mention this. They were pioneers of adaptive audio techniques. A lot of that was like done very well, and I'm not sure if it's the first time, but like it has a history of using them. Like all the tracks have like different versions for the time of day, and for like if you're in an enemy battle, and they all naturally transition into each other.
Yeah.
And that's something that's a very Pikmin thing. It's in all of the Pikmin games. In like Pikmin 2's boss theme later on has sections that play while the enemy is attacking, and they have different versions of that. And it's just a very well done. It's very well done.
Yep. It's top notch development for sure. You have the challenge mode on here. You said you just wanted to mention it because it is what it is.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Oh, actually, sorry about the music in the challenge mode. Combining the two topics. For some reason, the music is just sped up in the challenge mode. For some reason, I don't know why.
To make it more urgent. It's a challenge.
I guess.
Challenge you to go faster.
Yep.
I guess. But yeah, the challenge mode is just to see how many Pikmin you can make. And, like, it's a good idea for a challenge mode, especially since making Pikmin can be very engaging in the game. But, I don't know, it just doesn't really sink its hooks into me. Like, I've completed, like, and maybe that's, like, I've invested a lot more in the challenge mode in the other two games in the series. I haven't played Hey Pikmin, but like, I just haven't really, there's just not really any desire to play Pikmin 1's challenge mode very much.
Yeah.
Just kind of there.
So, that's pretty, I can't think of anything we didn't really touch on with the gameplay. I think we're safe to move on to some facts about the game. The SS Dolphin is a direct reference to the code name for the GameCube, which I remember reading about the Dolphin quite a bit in Nintendo Power, before its release, and definitely did not make that connection right off the bat. It's something I wasn't really thinking about until later, but it's an obvious reference.
They like referencing the Dolphin, because didn't they also do it for Sunshine?
Isle Delfino.
Isle Delfino.
Yep, Delfino.
Yeah, they really like referencing it.
Something else.
A lot more references than the NX ever got.
Yeah. They wanted to kind of quickly forget that, it seemed like.
Yeah. It's just not a very good code name. I wonder if the Switch emulator will come out and they'll call that the NX emulator.
I'm sure, yeah. I'm sure it already exists. There should be a Switch emulator by now.
Oh. I'm not up to date on emulation.
Yeah, I can't say that I would tell everybody to rush out and go use it, but I'm sure it exists. Another little quick fact here is that it is possible to beat the game without losing a single Pikmin, which would have to be super tough, like to try to keep track of all of them and not have one die in a battle. It seems pretty tough.
Would you rather attempt to beat the game without losing one Pikmin, or beat the game in 6 days?
That's another one to put onto the scales, because you definitely aren't going to do it. You can't do both. I guarantee it.
Give me a few seconds to look this up, because I know that this is an actual speedrunning category on speedrunning.com. No deaths. I know it actually is one. It's under category extensions, I think. And so I'm gonna look up how fast they've done this because it might be just as fast. Not Pikmin 2 category. Regular. Where is it? Pikmin 1.
Oh, while you're looking it up, I'll read another one. It says in the game's files are portraits of all the Pikmin types carrying bomb rocks, implying that once all the types of Pikmin could carry bombs. It's thought that the bomb rocks were given to just the yellow Pikmin due to the electricity being cut from the game, which was later kind of.
Yeah, they added that back into the later games. It's a weird thing for yellow Pikmin to do. They do also have the higher arc when thrown. Yeah. But yeah, it's like why only the yellow ones?
Yeah.
Particularly when there's kind of an elemental affinity they'd established with red being fire, blue being water.
Fire, yep.
Yellow is can use bombs. Wait a minute.
Explosions. Yellow. I don't.
The three elements: fire, water, and explosions.
Bombs. It's like playing rock paper scissors bomb.
Because explosions are so different from fire.
Yes.
Yeah, they're their own element. Keep up.
And Philip, you added this one in about the song. Is that I Know Uda?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Also, I guess it's not a speedrun category for the original Pikmin, but it is apparently one for the 2 games after it. Okay. So I guess I can't give you that, but I bet it's possible to do it in the same daytime. I guess we'd have to watch it and see if any Pikmin die in the speedrun. Yeah. Because I mean it's inconvenient to have to grow more Pikmin, so maybe that already is a deathless run.
It could be.
But anyway, the SF Dolph, the I Know Uda, it was created. It was they used in the game's trailers. It was created to promote the song, and it just outsold it by quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember.
If I remember right,
that one song was super popular when they released it.
Ba da 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 ba da ba da da. I just know that because the Pikmin in Pikmin 2 will sing it as a reference if you have 20 of each type.
Yep, I remember hearing about that. Also, the enemy real footage appears to have been made early in Pikmin's development. The areas shown are altered from how they appear in the game and the camera, and also some graphical effects appear different from the final game as well. So probably just an earlier build. And then they were like, is it really worth it to go back and change all this? Probably not. Nobody's going to care.
One of the interesting tidbits about that fun fact is that all of the enemies are in alphabetical order, except for one, the swooping stitch bug. It's instead around where F is, which implies that its name originally had something to do with flying.
Yep.
Which would put it in that place in the enemy roll.
And the last fact on here says, why do they call it Pikmin when you pick men? The leaf guys pick women, flower throw the guys? Is that a type? That's a Garfield reference for Dan to enjoy because he couldn't make it on the episode. I threw that in. It was late at night. It's a reference to the oven meme with Garfield. Oh, okay.
And it was just because it's why, and the original one I think is why do they call it oven when you in the cold food, out hot eat the food, and I tried to replicate that with Pikmin, because they sound similar, and because I needed Dan to know that we care about him. So I added a Garfield reference because we know how much he loves that series.
Yeah, Dan was definitely wanting to be on the show originally, but due to prior engagement that he had already made, couldn't make it. So Sam quickly filled in.
Instead, you get me.
Yep, you get some mole.
And Garfield.
And Garfield, yes. Whenever Dan's
Suitable.
away, Garfield's at play. But that's all I've got for facts. So we'll do a quick outro real quick. We're already at about an hour and a half, which is where I like to keep these.
引っこ抜かれてあなただけについてゆく今日も運ぶ戦う増えるそして食べられるほったかされてまたって投げられてでも私たちがあなたにしたらいつ
I know Flightsy, you do a little bit of streaming, so if you want to promote yourself streaming wise and where people can find you.
Watch my live stream. I live stream on YouTube. I know it's not a conventional choice, but there's a bunch of random little factors. I already had a YouTube channel, and I kind of wanted to grow that with the live streams, and I wanted to be a seamless transition. But I live stream every Friday at 9 on my YouTube channel called The Flight Ship, and every Tuesday at 5, I release like an edited video. I haven't gotten to the live streams yet, but eventually the live streams will be re-edited and put in the Tuesday slot. But if you want to watch the live streams right after they air, if you just missed one and you just want to watch the unedited footage, I throw up the raw footage on a channel called The Flight Ships Archive. So you can go see that. It's linked in the Flight Ships description. If you join the Retrologic Discord, I always post a link when I'm live in the Discord creator promotion chat, and that's always Friday at 9. I have not missed one since I started. Even that one time I had technical difficulties and couldn't actually play the game, so I just kind of browsed the internet. Even I needed to make sure that people knew I was there, because I think that a punctual schedule is important for building an audience. But there's one other thing that I'm currently doing right now, and I'm currently editing my full-on like scripted review of Kirby's Dream Land. And I was hoping to get that out by the 27th, which is when the anniversary is for the Japanese release, but I'm probably not going to be able to. Editing is hard and kind of a chore to get through. And I'm in the editing stage. I just got to edit it, and so that's going to be launching on a new channel called Captain's Log. If you're in the Retrologic Discord, you'll probably hear about it because I'll try and promote it because it's a new thing. And that's just because I want to start Captain's Log so I can talk about things, because I feel like scripted content, it takes more effort and it takes more of a thing. And I was really excited to do it because like I feel like it has a higher production value than just doing a live stream. And I'm quite excited about it. It's already all recorded. It's definitely happening. I just got to get on that editing grind and finish it out. And the next game I wanted to review after Kirby's Dream Land was actually Pikmin, the original Pikmin. That's why I was playing Pikmin over spring break.
Well, there you go. Well, we'll look forward to that content, and everybody go check out Flightsy's stuff. He's a pretty awesome dude. Hangs out in the Discord all the time, and he's always willing to chat for sure.
And talk about Kirby.
Yeah, Pikmin, Kirby. You know,
Rhythm Heaven is technically the third one.
Yep, hit you up for a lot of things on that. Sam, go ahead and fill us in.
Yeah, you can catch me on the Retrologic podcast, which is a fortnightly now podcast.
Yes.
I won't say bi-weekly because that confuses people. Every 14 days, we talk about retro games. But yeah, all my stuff's pretty much through the Retrologic website. You can find most of that. The blog is there as well. I'm the main writer for that. I stream on Twitch on the Retrologic channel. That's Retrologic Games on Twitch. And I do have a Twitter at Mole3rd, the third strongest mole. That's me.
You are indeed the third strongest mole.
You should switch it. Instead of being every 14 days, you should make it like every 13 or 15 days, so like it just slowly travels around the week.
That would just be too confusing for us to keep track of.
Yeah.
And fit in
No,
schedules.
we definitely like our Mondays. We've established Monday as the best day.
We
for
like our
everyone,
Mondays.
so.
That's why we hate Garfield.
That's right. Doesn't fit with
We
the
ate
narrative.
Garfield.
You can find pretty much everything that we do on the retrologic.games website. Like Sam mentioned, he does his blog there. You can catch all the latest episodes of all of the podcasts that are a part of the Retrologic family of podcasts, including this one. That's where you've... you guys know who I am and know what I do, so I won't go into all that, but this is Pikmin, and this is our show. The next show will be about Toe Jam and Earl, which is our retro rewind game. Not quite every other one, but about every other show of On Topic Retro will be tied to a community play session of a game that's selected by the community members. So anybody that wants to be a part of selecting that game and just a part of playing the game with a community, there's something about being able to, play through a game and discuss it as you're playing that is wholesome, and you just get a lot more out of the game doing so. So we do that every month. We select a game, we play through it, and then we discuss it on the show. I kind of narrowed it down to 3 options as far as how the show will work. I'll either have very little engagement with the game that has been selected, and that will probably bring the show to be more like its current state, where it's going to be two to three experts on the subject matter, and we'll just kind of go through the game. If I get a huge amount of engagement, it will be a more of a just a live recording of a discussion of a group of guys or women, or whoever wants to join us. Anybody's welcome to fill out the show. So it'll be a large, similar to what we used to do on Retrologic whenever we would do our Retro Rewind there.
Yeah.
My mind's gone blank for the third option, but it would be something in between that. So we hope to have the most engagement so that we can have a big show, but if not, we'll definitely do just another normal On Topic Retro type episode, and we'll just deep dive the whole thing. So, like I said, Toe Jam and Earl was the game that was selected. Anybody that's not a part of the Discord that would like to give me their experiences to have talked about on the show, again, you can send those to ontopicretro@gmail.com, and I'll read them out, and you guys will be heard, because that's the important part here, is that experiences are shared, because none of them are the same. Thanks for listening to On Topic Retro. We're a part of the Retrologic family of podcasts. If you'd like to send, I've already mentioned that. Never mind. If you haven't joined our wonderful non-toxic Retrologic Discord and would like to, you can visit retrologic.games for details on how to join. It is free. You can just come in and chat. And that's basically it for this episode. Stay tuned for more, and we'll see you guys later. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Is there an after show? Like, because most of the Retrologic episodes have like a clip after the outro.
I haven't been doing that, so
We just got to give them
usually
some
by the
really
time I
good
get-
after show clip fodder.
I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
the after show for the episode I'm on is about my disgusting water bottle, and I have upgraded.
nice.
I have
There you go.
upgraded the water bottle. Y'all can rest easy. I am no longer dying because of the weird mold-ish thing growing on it I didn't do anything about for years. If there's if there's any, if you're wondering if there's brain damage, just interact with me on the Discord and you'll find out.